What's good, everybody? Time for another Magic Man review. Book we're going to do today is Why the West Can't Win by Fadi Lama. Okay. Now, this book was a good book and a bad book all at the same time. Alright? The reason it's a good book is because the guy did his homework. Alright, he did his homework on a lot of the statistics and a lot of the information that you won't hear in the Western media. You won't hear this information. If you watch the news, if you watch television, period, you're not going to hear this stuff. And most people in the West don't know this. Well, there's a good portion who do, but what we see on television is nothing but propaganda. It's just a bunch of BS. You know, it really is. It doesn't matter if you watch Fox News or CNN. It's the right and left wing of the same buzzard. Alright, it's a bunch of crap. It really is. And a lot of stuff on the internet's propaganda too. And you know what? A lot of these books are propaganda. The guy's really smart. Mechanical engineer. You know. Smart guy. But he's got a real problem with the West. He's got a real beef with the West. Right? Probably Europeans in general, okay? I'm not going to go any deeper. But how it's a bad book is that he lies by omission. He does. I'll go through the notes. All right. Let me go through some of the stuff. All right. So, he states that, like, genocide and slavery and just killing people and taking their stuff is intrinsic to the West. Okay, he says no other group of people do this sort of thing, which is absolute garbage. You know the motto for this channel: humans are going to human. Okay, humans do all kinds of messed up stuff. They've been doing it since the beginning of time. Okay, he talks about the genocide of the indigenous peoples. Okay. Again, we went over this in the Indian slave trade book. Okay. If you haven't seen that one, go back and watch that. There's no such thing as indigenous people. It's one of these buzzwords, propaganda words that uses. You know, it's used to make people say, oh, the West is bad. Look how they killed these indigenous peoples. People have been moving around and taking land from other people since the beginning of time. These so-called indigenous peoples, guess what? They're not native to where they're indigenous, where they're supposedly from. They moved to that land and they killed the people that lived there and they took it over. How do we know this? It's called DNA evidence. They can trace people coming. People are always moving around. They've always been moving around. And now they can track their DNA evidence. Oh, these people right here, but 2,000 years ago, they were living over there. Okay, so there's no such thing as indigenous. All right, that's a bunch of crap. All right. It talks about how the West went and committed a genocide against the Africans, which is true. But he fails to tell you that Africans were committing genocide against other Africans. They've been doing that since I've been alive, okay? Was it the Hutsis and I forget which one it was. They've been slaughtering each other a long time, all right? He does mention the fact that how the Japanese genocided the Chinese during the Second World War, or this, they were fighting before the Germans were fighting, and everybody else was fighting. There was the Second Sino-Japanese War, I forget, but I mean they were brutal. There's another book that documents this a lot. Is called The Rape of Nanking, and the Japanese were so brutal against the Chinese that even the Germans, the ones that go, even they were shocked. They were like, man, these people are messed up. And if you can make those guys blush and say you're too brutal, you're messed up. Okay? That's well documented. well documented. And so I have a hard time, oh, they dropped an atom bomb on the Japanese. Okay. Did you mention what the Japanese did in Korea, Manchuria, China, Guam, Vietnam, everywhere they went? Good stuff, good stuff. So he's saying that, Japan kind of like emulated the West, and this is why they acted the way they did. And the West are just brutal people that just love going out and murdering a whole bunch of people and taking their stuff. He just admits all the brutal stuff that humans have been doing against each other for a long time. The Aztecs genocided people. The communists, both in China and Russia. Doesn't mention the Khmer Rouge. He does not. He talks about how Islam is better because they're so much more peaceful, which is just blows your mind. If you've read as much as I have, the Islamic African slave trade was brutal. I mean, brutal. Go and look up the Islamic Arab African slave trade. The Islamic Arabs went into Africa and enslaved a lot more Africans than the Europeans ever did and brutalized them. And plus, this is part of Islam. You can do this, in Islam. That's fine. They don't care. At least they did back then. I mean, whatever. Most of the book is supposed to be about. The reason I want it is because the economic parts of it. The economic information, which is the only good part about the books. It's really good, but even then, he admits a lot of stuff. Okay, he spends a lot of time talking about the moneyed powers. And he mentions 4 hedge funds, and that's about as deep as he goes. He keeps on saying the moneyed powers, the moneyed powers, the moneyed powers. And if you've read a lot of economic stuff, or if you've worked for financial institutions like I have, you kind of understand who the moneyed powers are. But if you're just picking this up for the first time, you're not going to know. You'll be like, who are these moneyed powers? Who are these people? It doesn't get into depth. He also says that one of the ways that a country can rise up and become economically self-sufficient is by adopting a National Socialist form of government. For those of you who don't know, National Socialism is the long version of... Yeah, that's what he advocates in this book, right? Okay. He admits the fact that it didn't work in Germany. They just put so much into their armaments that they didn't put as much as they should have into farming, and they had more people than they had food. He blames the neoliberal economics for the downturn in the 1970s. Does not mention the Arab oil embargo at all. You would think somebody with a mechanical engineering degree is going to talk about, the downward economics in the 70s. Would mention the Arab oil embargo. Okay, he lies by omission. I can go on and on and on. Oh, he's talking about fossil fuel. Okay, I've worked in the petroleum industry, and there's no such thing as fossil fuel. That's propaganda. It's hydrocarbons. Okay, we can make hydrocarbons. It's expensive, but it's cheaper just to dig it out of the ground. All right. Again, he lies by omission. He tells you how bad the West is and how we've enslaved people and destroyed cultures. A lot of the garbage about the sacred Indians and all that jazz. It does not mention the fact that they were having human sacrifices on top of these pyramids where they killed thousands upon thousands of people. And then when the Europeans got to Central America, the Aztecs had built huge spirals. like the Romans did. They would put up a column like after one of their victories, to commemorate their victory, and they, carve out, battle scenes on the column. It says, this is what happened so and so when we defeated, whoever. Well, the Aztecs did the same thing, except they made their spirals or their columns out of human skulls. Okay? When the Spanish got there, they said these people are they're under the direct control of the devil, and they believed it. And it would be hard not to see what they were doing. They were doing brutal stuff, all right? But, he falls under this category of people that want, because they've got a beef with the West, they have to omit stuff that they know. I guarantee you he knows a lot of stuff. Guarantee you. This is not a stupid guy, all right? He also says a whole bunch of stuff in here. He says China was too big to conquer and colonize. Okay? Which is utterly ridiculous. Okay? China was conquered by the Mongols and the Manchurians. Most of the Chinese emperors were not, Han Chinese. They were either Mongols or Manchurians. Go read it, okay? You telling me that China's never been conquered, or that Russia's never been conquered? The Mongols conquered China and Russia, and India, and damn near everybody else too. And they were the brutalest of brutal. The Black Death came about, the Black Plague in Europe came about because the Mongols were sacking cities in Asia and all around the Black Sea, and they would catapult dead bodies into these cities they were sieging to give them infectious diseases. And these people, they fled those cities on the ships, and they brought the Black Plague to Europe and killed millions of people, okay? So this whole nonsense about the West being just like awful, listen, I'm not saying that, everything was great, in the West, or Europeans, or, such enlightened people, But guess what? It was Great Britain that ended the slave trade. All right, it wasn't Africans, it wasn't Arabs, it sure as hell wasn't Muslims, it wasn't the Chinese, it wasn't the Russians, it was Great Britain ended the African slave trade. Okay? Now, they did go, one of the reasons they ended it because they were going around conquering all these places where the slave trade was present and eradicating it. But they ended the slave trade in the Atlantic. And that was detrimental to them, but they still did it. Go and look it up for yourself. The economic stuff in here is good, but he puts in so much crap, lying by omission, that it was hard to read. Good book to read, but you gotta go in with a clear mind and knowing your stuff. Or he's gonna have you convincing yourself that, if you're a European, you should jump off a bridge because you're evil. No. You should jump off a bridge, Fadi Lama, because you lie by omission. Alright? I had high hopes for this book, but sometimes when I read stuff like this, it just makes my blood boil, especially when they have these little propaganda words like indigenous peoples and fossil fuels. A bunch of nonsense. Okay? Europeans are horrible. Yeah, you forget the Mongols. You forget the Khmer Rouge. How about Chairman Mao's Great Leap Forward? How many millions of people did that kill? Okay? So, if you want to read this book, okay. Some of the stuff in there is good. And the overall premise of the book is good. The West, we're kind of screwing ourselves. We've been screwing ourselves since I've been alive. Okay? We shipped all our industries overseas, and we're just economically shooting ourselves in the foot with like cannons. And it can be turned around. It really could. He thinks, oh no, it can't be turned. Yeah, it could. Yeah, it could. I could do that in a heartbeat. It's easy. There's just no political will to do it, and people are stupid. Why the West Can't Win by Fadi Lama, the man who lies by omission.